All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Scriptation Pro Series. My name is Pete Chatmon. We'll get into it shortly. I do have a brief introduction because all things deserve to be introduced. And I want you to kind of know why we're here, a little bit about who I am and what we're going to do. So why are we here on a Saturday morning? Well, I've been using Scriptation for about 4 years now, and it has really enhanced my workflow as a director. I'm a guy who likes to demystify the process. So when Steve Vitolo asked me if I'd be down to do a Pro Series event built around how I personally use Scriptation, I said, let's do it. On a Saturday morning. Some of you may have read my book, Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook, or you may listen to my podcast, Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon. Through both the book and the podcast, I try to share all of the things that I wish people would have shared with me over the 10 plus years that it took me to land an episode of television. For today's presentation and Q&A, I'm going to be as candid and transparent with you as I can regarding my prep for an episode of television and how I use Scriptation to level up on my own terms. I really want you to keep in mind and remember that, through our time together, there is no right way to use Scriptation. Personally, I'm refining my interaction with the program based on my own preferences, enhancements to my creative approach, or whatever the demands of a particular episode may be. And it's interesting too, because the script that we're going to work from today, I've noticed the changes I've made in the past 9 months in how I do my job using the app. So a little bit about my journey with Scriptation. The first show that I ever booked was a 2017 episode of Blackish. Shout out to Kenya Barris. At the time, I worked from a beautiful monogrammed suede 3-ring binder. My goal was to look the part of a serious director who had all the right tools. My backpack looked like I worked part-time at Staples. I had a mini hole puncher, assorted Sharpies, fine point pens from Japan, Post-it notes and Post-it arrows, index cards, a ruler, a flashlight, and more. I've swapped all of that out for an iPad Pro with Scriptation, and the only thing that remains from those days is the flashlight. And that's a little pro tip that you can keep in your back pocket. I learned that from director Janice Cook when I was shadowing her on Greenleaf, and we went to walk a stage on the weekend and the house lights weren't on, and the only way that she was able to complete her blocking walkthrough was because she had a trusty flashlight. So there you go. Keep that in your pocket too. Cut to 2022, and I've directed over 50 episodes of television. I'm attached to a couple pilots. I've served as producing director on a series for Hulu, and I've arrived at a place where I do my best work because of Scriptation. So before we get into it, finally, I have to give a huge shout out and thanks to Suzanne McCormick and Kelly Cuoco over at Yes Norman Productions for working with Warner Brothers TV to get today's script approved for use. We'll be working from my marked up production draft of episode 205 of The Flight Attendant, entitled Drowning Women, written by Liz Segal and Steve Yockey. I had the pleasure of directing this episode in October and November of 2021. All right, so the director's currency in television is speed. That's from episode 35 of my podcast. That was the title of the episode. And every now and then, if I have a good line that I think resonates, I make it the title. And I find myself sharing that with all kind of newcomers to directing, or when working directors have war stories, we often talk about the fact that it's about how fast you can go while still being creative and running a great set. So in prep, which is what we're going to focus on, the name of the game is meetings. Before you ever get to set, there's a potential combination of about 16 meetings for which you'll need to prepare. Every show and every episode within a show is different. When you receive your script will vary from show to show. I have done shows where I've gotten the script Right now I'm working on, I guess I'm not even working on it yet because I won't shoot until early October, but I already have the script and have had the script for my next show for several weeks. So I will have had probably 7 weeks with that material before showing up to prep. I have done shows where I get the script 3 days into prep. And regardless of when I get the script, a great episode is expected and a clarity of vision is demanded. So I think having and developing a process that allows you to take whenever you get the script and plug in, play it into the process that works is really important. Your job as director is to be prepared for all of these meetings as quickly, efficiently, and creatively as possible. So, what do you do once you get your hands on that script? Now I'm going to hop over to Scriptation. And this here is, well, I'll show you how we get to this point. This is the draft that I worked from for production of the script. Now, I'll just kind of swipe through and show you what it looks like. And then we'll get to a blank version of it and begin to build out toward it. So obviously with Scriptation, you can write on your iPad or a tablet as if it's a piece of paper. That's beautiful. I read a great book, which I invite all of you to, entitled Directors Tell the Story by Bethany Rooney and Mary Lou Belli. They talk about making this grid, which goes through all the plot points and all the scenes and all of the storylines in the episode. I do that and I import it into my script. At the top, it's great for me to have a quick overview of what's going on and where the characters were before and after a given scene. Really helpful on location scouts. I don't have to thumb through the script. I can go through this very quickly. And it's also great when an actor is unsure of maybe or needs a reminder of where they came from in the previous scene. I can just go to this grid and track it very quickly. What else do I work into here? I do this document where I take all the scenes in the script and I make a checklist of whether or not I have the diagram or the set. So that would be, are there overheads that I can get from production, from the art department? Is there something that I can sketch out myself? That's the first step, and that's me loading that into Scriptation. That's what I'm checking off in that column. Then I've got a column for whether or not I've blocked that scene. And then I've got a column as to whether or not I have shot listed that scene. And then you'll see in the column where I've written floor plans to come, I don't know where I was in prep when this happened, but it's directing a TV show is a living, breathing document. So this was probably pretty early. There were all the things in blue that I hand wrote that are handwritten over here. I had yet to have a diagram for, so I was just making sure I had a checklist of what was to come. Some scenes end up being drawn by hand because if the floor plan is going to be coming down the line, I'm not going to wait to have a beautiful floor plan. I'm going to draw it out and get it in there so I can work out what I need. Here, that was probably on the day of the shoot as I got deeper into it. And then I begin to have this marked up script. These are imported floor plans with blocking and camera. And it begins to look like a bit of a madman's Bible. But that is a version of what it looks like. But when you begin, your script looks like this. And so I've taken out all of the annotations from the script you just saw. That's why there are a bunch of blank pages here. But when I first get the script and begin to prep in answering my own question, I read the script as if I have no hand in directing it. I just want to understand it as a person, as a civilian. And at that point, I go through and I read the first time without making any notes unless anything really pops out to me. And then on my second reading, I start to break it down. So in Scriptation, and working from the tablet alone and the Apple Pencil, if I get a chance to put it on my Magic Keyboard, you'll be able to see the mouse move. But in the meantime, you'll see me highlight different functions in the annotation. So the first thing I do, I have my own system that means nothing. It's just what I do to determine how I want to treat everything that I see. So I'll go through and I'll say, I'll use green for close on Cassie's face. That green for me is letting me know that's a camera thing. I have chosen that randomly, but that's what I always do. And I'm sorry, actually, I'm gonna hit this undo button right here, because what I would actually do is have close on as the angle, and then I would change to yellow because I'm gonna put all the characters in yellow. My next character I see is Benjamin. So I would go through all of my characters and make sure that I'm there and knocking them out. Close on, we hear a vacuum in the hallway. Now, in this case, I'm doing two things. I've got vacuum in the hallway, so I'm going to highlight that as a prop, which I do in this reddish color. And then I use this bluish thing for anything that is something that I hear. So we hear the vacuum. I know that's going to be a sound design thing. If there's like an off-screen line, I do that. I just finished an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I do that for all the Meredith voiceover that happens. So while it may not be happening in the scene, I'm allowing for it in how I'm watching the time and blocking something. What else do we have over here? We've got reveal. Close on, I would probably put reveal in green because that makes me say, what am I going to do with the camera to reveal this person? Will it be a hard cut? Will it be a pan? What's the deal? Then let's see, we've got more props. So I'll go back to my red. We've got the empty Scotch bottle. Under the Scotch bottle is a folder labeled C-bound and asset. So there's a lot of undoing sometimes. I'll just kind of go ahead and get that all in one. She quickly flips through the folder, her POV. That's telling me to make that green. Very disturbing details. Now I'm back to props. Why? Because this is something that the actor is interacting with and it's going to have to be made. So an image of Cassie post-car bombing. A document, and actually, it's kind of, it may seem haphazard, but this is kind of what the process is like. So I just noticed that it says an image of a document, crime scene photos. I want to just make note of the different things. So these are both props. Surveillance images of the double at Devoys. And what I'll probably do here is just underline an image of a document, surveillance images, and then Cassie at Echo Lake Park, that's another surveillance image. And then we've got crime scene photos of all this stuff. So I've got all that. We've got a photo of a single red leather glove. We've got evidence, her eyes dart from sleeping Benjamin to the files in her hand about her. And actually, I don't need to do that because that's already been identified. She takes photos of the files with her phone. So in this case, I'm gonna say phone. I'll highlight that as a prop, but she takes photos of green because that's gonna be something that I'm gonna wanna get a shot of. And boom. So that's one particular scene. Now I'm going to switch because as you change the orientation on your iPad, you can see that more of, if you look at the top, more of the annotation options reveal themselves. So I will now go and use this blue box, and I outline every single stage direction. Right. And we've got a couple more. Whoops. Why blue? Because why not? Again, Scriptation, you can use it as in whatever fashion you want. I just stuck with blue for whatever reason, and I'm sticking with it. So now that first scene is broken down, and I'm going to do that for every scene in the episode. I'm going to go back to here. So what do you do when you get your hands on that script? That's what
Pete.
Yes.
So, hey, Pete, before you move on, hey, everyone, Rico here. So I'm going to feed you just a couple of questions that we got from the Q&A. You want to go back to your iPad for just 1 second? That might help with 2 questions we have.
Let's do it.
So Marvin was asking, why do you outline the stage directions in particular? If you could give a little bit more insight about that.
Of course. So here's the thing. When I'm trying to get to a point where when I'm on set, I don't have my script. And so I want to be able to look very quickly and see what has to happen. Not all, and this is no indictment. There are just different ways of writing. Some people write, sometimes they'll get a script and it's like, boom, 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 boom. And then I can look at it probably without these lines and be clear on what I need to make sure happens on screen. If that's not the case, and there's more prose or exposition, which is fine, I want to make sure that I've just got it in units that I can take care of. So, a lot of times too, this is not necessarily an example of it, but I can look at this. Let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could say there are 5 movement beats in this scene, and I can clearly look at them and identify them. As you saw in the script before we came back to the blank one, I had a lot more notes because oftentimes scenes are much more complicated than they read. And this opening scene intercuts with the Mind Palace. And I was beginning to make some creative decisions as to continuity. And so I had her like on one side of the desk in the beginning. Then we went to the Mind Palace. She flips up the papers, and I did a match cut to her on the other side of the desk. And I just wanted to kind of identify where the props would be in each of these different blue outlined squares, if that makes sense.
Totally. I got one more for you. See, Vincent asks, is it typical in episodic television scripts for shot scale, framing, camera movements to be included? And as a director, how specifically do you have to adhere to those notations that were provided by the writers?
So I think the best writers are able to write in exactly what they are looking for you to do with the camera in how they describe what's going on. So close on, that's very important. As an episodic TV director, you're hopping into, it's kind of like that I Love Lucy episode where she can't, get the chocolates off the assembly line quick enough. And so you're kind of hopping into a stream that is already moving, and you don't always know, how your episode is tethered to the one before it, or what you're setting up for something after your episode. So close on Cassie's face, there's a world where the director might start in a master shot, and that's not what they want, because her having slept with her boss was a big thing. And now we wake up with her and we don't know where she is, and we need to be close on her face. So it is a matter of taste, I think, from the writers. I think the best writers do this because I want to have a guide as to what you're looking for. And, do you have to adhere to it? I think do you want to keep your job? No, but I think, the thing about it is that you're trying to get into a place where if everybody's of like mind around the idea and what the story is, then you want these guides and these kind of guardrails to help your creative epiphanies have a landing place. You know what I mean? I'll try and find real quick in this script. There's a point where, yes. Yeah. So if you notice here, Cassie exits, opens a bottle, and takes a long pull. Note, from this point on in episode, whenever we're with Cassie, we shift to hard turns, low angles, and abrupt jump cuts as Cassie becomes more drunk and erratic. When I read that, I was so happy because it was just like, oh, I can literally do a lot of the things that I turn off because I know that it's not right for the story. And I think you never want to impose your taste or idea on something because you think it's cool. You want to find something that is going to have a cohesive relationship with the whole thing.